I good now?
Yeah.
Am I streaming? Yeah, I'm streaming.
Should be good now.
Yeah, I'm streaming.
Call me the indigo child, hey, I got the digital sounds, baby. Keep the haters from round me. My pleasure, I know that some clowns sick. If they just bust a whole pound, bitch. Oh, ain't no cuffing around here. Yo, took me out on the town, yeah, yeah. Call me the indigo child, hey, I got the digital soundscape. We keep the haters from round me. My pleasure, I know that them clowns sick. If they just bust a whole pound, bitch. Oh, ain't no cuffing around here. Yo, took me out on the town, yeah, yeah.
Yellow diamond watch, yellow bottom style, yellow bones to pop, tattoos on the skin and mark the spot, tattoos on the heart to scar the rub. Young nigga getting lit it off Sprite. Gotta had a couple Hennies on the.
Can you hear the music now?
Oh my gosh, J.R. Smith's all up on my squad. That shooter's
is it loud?
Far. Nigga keep on hating, carry on, cause I got my head on Barry Bonds. Niggas bragging but they really barely on. I'm bad like Billy, baby, don't fuck with my Skrilla, baby, or you just might initiate a war. You don't want war with the gods, you don't want war with the gods. I get you smoke like the grass, I leave you gone in the floss. I take your girl to West Palm, Florida, and put on my CD and pummel that ass. Then I still the master for the head, it's sure. Yeah, bad thing.
Call me the indigo child, hey, I got the digital soundscape.
Is the music real loud?
Pleasure, I know that them clowns sick. Have they just a pound, bitch? Ho, ain't no cuffing around.
Is it too loud?
Out on the town, yeah, yeah.
Or you can barely hear it.
Indigo child, hey, I got the digital soundscape. We keep the haters from round me. My pleasure, I know that them clowns sick. If they just bust a whole pound, bitch. Oh, ain't no cuffing around here. You took me out on the town, yeah, yeah. Hit it hard and I been up the town bad, man. Jump too deep in that water, you know you can't swim. I'm a beach nigga off the rip. Cold Antarctic women, not this. Fresh and I don't know Esteban, bitch. Hop out the forces.
Okay, I heard you.
In the flick of my wrist, we take a risk for the chips. Check my arithmetic. Add up the chips, let them sit. I added your system, I said.
Okay, let me. Where your phone at so I can hear? You can hear me talking to you.
You can
still.
Odyssey, follow me. Burn up a bridge and I won't need apologies. See, our new shit is like an anthology. I can break all you haters like pottery. Oops, where your daughter been? With the ops sipping rose and throwing hits.
Hey bitch, come here. Shut your motherfucking leg, come here. Mr. Pretty Tony, I mean, you know the rules of the game. I mean, your bitch just chose me. Now we can settle this like you got some plans, so we can get into some gangsters. J3 nigga. You ain't no pimp. You're a rest haven for hoes. You're a car thief. A car thief. The one you got out there is probably hot as a firecracker right now. It was $35,000. $35,000 cash money? No, I get $35,000 plus one, right? The one I gave. No, you gave me six, though, right? That was one. I had one. It was six, and the $35,000 plus one plus six leaves seven. $35,000 and seven, right? Motherfucker, can you buy that? Nigga, next time you hear grown folks talking, shut the fuck up, yeah? Go get it, Bob. Bring that bitch here. Nigga, you wanna die?
Hello. How y'all doing?
Wait, gonna be man?
Huh?
I'm gonna make you wish you never was born, nigga. Let's get out this dump.
Hello. How y'all doing? You can smash that light and come on in.
Straight drop.
No, we don't want to play that. How y'all doing?
with the gang, blowing flame, hey. In it for the money, fuck the fame, hey. All these bitches saying.
You see anybody chatting?
All this stress been weighing on my brain, hey. Black rock star like a muddy waters. I'm on that 93 in that muddy water. Pull up with the gang, blowing flame, hey. Pull up with the gang, blowing flame, hey.
We pull out that bitch in the Charger. Got power Antonio Tarver. I got in touch with the shorty, and she let me cut like a barber. It's true when we get hoes, we dog 'em. I ain't Snacks daddy, her problem. I'm in a room like a Marvin.
Very tight. Type something. Say hello.
Niggas imposters. I'm writing blades.
Anybody typing in the chat?
Blaze Baraka. Better drop 50 like Brian. These rappers, I eat them like one time. Finish some swamp.
I don't see them chatting.
It's 100. Virginia the one I'm from. I got too much flavor. Black S5 Darth Vader. She want my logo.
What are they saying?
Mileage like Rose. Hey, gang, come get with the gods. Lay up with me and I send her to y'all. Thug life hit with my Timberlands on. And when I am gone, she remember.
I can't see them.
With the gang, blowing flame, hey. In it for the money, fuck the fame, hey. All these bitches saying I'm insane, hey.
You can hear me now?
All this stress been weighing on my brain, hey. Black rock star like a muddy waters. I'm on that
I don't know.
93
I
in
can't
that
see my
muddy
chat.
water. Pull up with the gang, blowing flame, hey. Pull up with the gang, blowing flame.
So you still can hear me?
Congregating with the guys, she had relations with the
I can't hear nobody. I can't see my chat.
Let's have a menage. Bypass the kind of large. Seen it as it was kind of large. She got a lip spread, slapping top smooth as soon as I split the condom on. Hulk smash at atomic bomb, purple kush bask in the ambiance. Backwoods blowing back to back. Need that for my tolerance. Keep the hitters in my entourage. But baby, there's not your concern. Who you fucking, that is not my concern. That ain't my pussy, girl, this is my turn. She heard of something like
okay,
a big
I see it now.
trying to ride it like a big wheel. Let it see how the dick.
Hello, everybody. Hello. I'm sorry. I was having technical difficulties with my chat.
Tell her shut up and suck on the dick 'cause you don't do it enough.
Can y'all hear me now?
Gang blowing flame, hey. In it for the money, fuck the fame, hey.
Hey. All right, let me go down. K Money, beautiful. Eric, hello. Who else?
Like a muddy waters.
Knowledge, how you doing?
Muddy water. Pull up with the gang, blowing flame, hey.
Chief Disaster, how you doing? Joanna, beautiful, how you doing? Municipal, beautiful, how you doing? Okay, we're gonna go here and switch on over. Okay, before that, I want to read this disclaimer, the copyright disclaimer. Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is in use. Okay, fair use is in use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Okay, y'all, we're gonna get started. Yeah, I had a little technical difficulties. I'm not going to say it was really technical difficulties. I just had to refresh. But I thank you all for coming in. Logic, my brother Logic in the chat. Where you at, Logic? How you doing, Honey Lot? Beautiful. How you doing, Terry? Beautiful. How you doing? Cousin, beautiful. How you doing? Yeah, I as y'all can see, I got new ones, so we shouldn't have that problem. But we're going to talk about Rikers prison system, and we're going to talk about a few of the victims that went through it. The statute law that was passed that Rikers is not abiding by. As y'all can see, I got my copyright disclaimer up. Make sure y'all hit that like button for your girl on y'all way in the door, okay? And what I'm going to do is play this video for you all. I'm going to play it, and I'm not going to show it due to the fact that I don't want nobody to flag it, but I am going to play this video. But what I want y'all to know is, when it comes to the prison system in Rikers, more than thousands of juveniles are subject to solitary confinement every year. That seems to be a big problem when it comes to not only that prison system, but it comes to a lot of prison systems. When we have when juveniles are sentenced to prison, and they automatically are put in solitary confinement, and some of them are not even charged, or are in solitary confinement for maybe they might be in solitary confinement for hours, they might be in for days, they might be in for weeks, they may be in for months before they even charge these juveniles. But the problem with that is, most of these juveniles that commit a crime or allegedly commit a crime, it's the psychological and mental abuse that they go through when it comes to going to the prison system and being sentenced in the prison system. Alright, these youths, when a youth is put in solitary confinement, the issue is the harmful abuse, the isolation, the mentalness that they go through, the sleeplessness that they go through, and most of these youths don't even receive counseling like they're supposed to once they are released out of confinement. While in confinement, if there are youths that's in school, they don't get no type of schooling. Some of them probably won't even get medical attention when it comes to the prison system. And unfortunately, I thought Riker was like top of the list when it came to the prison system, but actually you'd be surprised where they fall at, and what is the number one worst prison system in America. These youths also experience depression and anxiety while in solitary. And like I said, they go through sleeplessness and stuff. But in 2015, New York City had banned solitary confinement for inmates younger than 22 and curtail it for the other ones. The problem is, even though it was banned, they still was putting these youths in solitary confinement. So that became a real big issue. And I know, it's a lot of people, it's a few that I even talk to, and that's all they talk about, how bad the criminal justice system is in New York, how bad the prison system is in New York and stuff. But regardless of the crime that is committed, and regardless of the fact that they are being sentenced to that prison, there need to be people held accountable, especially these guards, when it comes to the abuse that the inmates endure, especially the youth endure and stuff. They need to also be held accountable for. They did not. That did not stop. Like I said, although it was banned, it still didn't stop the youth from being put in solitary confinement. That's a problem when it comes to that. What happened to the youth detention center at an age of 14, 15, regardless of the charge? When did it become okay to bypass the juvenile detention center and just send them straight to prison? So because you send them to prison, the best course of action is to put them in solitary confinement? That's not how it's supposed to be done. But when it comes to the criminal justice system, when it comes to the system, period, it's not fair. And we can't say, okay, well, it's just happening to this particular race and it's happening to that particular race, because all races are experiencing this maltreatment when it comes to the prison. Unfortunately, especially these youths. Suicide rates became heightened, as well as depression. At some point, 16 and 17-year-olds were being moved off of Rikers Island to comply with the new law, which a new law came in effect, but that still did not stop them from putting these youths in the prison system, unfortunately. Really, Quinoa, I'm glad you're home safe. Okay. Oh, Quinoa, I did not know you did 7 months on Rikers Island. Wow. 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 I guess you got some stories to tell when you was on Rikers Island. Inmates started, with the abuse that was going on there, you had inmates who started filing abuse claims about what they was going through. If you are physically being abused and you know you're not supposed to be abused, you know you're not supposed to be treated like this, and the guards was the ones that was doing it. That's the sad part about it. The guards was doing it. Now, how can you sit there and hire correctional officers to uphold the law when they're breaking the law? Just because somebody is convicted of a crime don't mean you have to go in and beat them or treat them any kind of way. They're still a human being regardless of what crime they commit. But like I said, the inmates started filing abuse claims that eventually was dismissed by Sheriff Craig D. Apple, stating that the claims that the inmates was filing for abuse was frivolous. How we just sit there and dismiss the claims and we don't look into it if you don't have something to hide. Let's talk about the abuse that these inmates really was experiencing. I want y'all to listen to something.
My name is Imani. Me and my friends, we went to the store. We walked in Dollar General. It was a man in the store. He had long hair. He seen us and he kept looking. So I'm just looking too. He grabbed my friend, so I pushed him. Then we ended up leaving out the store. He followed us. We was finna run, but I said we don't have to run because we didn't do nothing. So the police car stopped. One officer got out. So he like, did y'all just leave the store? So I'm like, yeah, because I didn't think we was going to get arrested because we didn't do nothing. So I'm like, yeah, I told him, yeah. They just told me to put my hands in my bag and cuffed me. My first impression was, what did I get myself into? I never actually thought about being arrested going to the Justice Center. The lady put me in a single cell. It was little. It was disgusting. It was dirty. A couple days later, the sergeant, I guess we was being too loud or something, and the man locked us in. So I wrote a grievance on him. And when the sergeant came, I gave it to the sergeant. The sergeant asked me, do you want to play this game? Who you think gonna win? Me or you? So I handed him the grievance. He told us pack our stuff. We went to the 4-man pop. I ended up flooding my cell, and they put me in the box. When I was in the box, I was in it for 45 days.
Augustus?
Somewhere around here. You walk in, the sink right here, the sink and the toilet is connected. The bed is on the floor, or no TV, no phones, nothing. I had no contact with the outside world whatsoever. Couldn't make no phone calls, couldn't see nobody, couldn't contact nobody, couldn't talk, nothing. You just sit there and wait till the next day to come. You in your cell. I'm always cold. The blankets is thin. I don't know, it made me feel like nothing. Like an animal. You wake up, they give you your tray through your slot. They come and put you in the shower if it's your day to shower. It's no nothing, just an open shower. And they see you, they be staring sometimes. Like one day I was in the shower, the man came and he said, "You done?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, hurry up." And he was standing there. Then I got out, he was staring at me. I put a towel over me, he still was looking at me. And I'm like, right agreements, nothing happened. I keep my distance from people. I didn't get sentenced the first time I came to jail. I was just sitting down here for like 4 months. I got out on probation. When I got out, it was like, I don't know, I really couldn't sleep because it have an effect on you. When you be in the box for so long, then you get out, you still feel like an animal sometimes.
Now just imagine if she felt that way, how many more of the other youths felt that way? To me, I understand that when you get sentenced to prison or any type of detention center, your rights is taken away. But the right to not be violated is not taken away. So there's an issue when you take a young child and she goes into the shower and you stand there as a male and watch her shower. I got a problem with that. That's a big issue. That's a real big issue. What happened to the female guards? At some point in time, you don't have to physically sit there and look at them bathe. Yes, you have to be there, but you don't have to have eye-to-eye contact and watch them bathe. That is one, uncomfortable. Two, sometimes you have to put yourself in that person's shoe, and you be the guard looking at that individual, and you're that inmate and that guard looking at you. And I don't think that some of these correction officers realize that they have to go home to families. And what if that happened to their child who may have committed a crime, and they're in solitary confinement and they haven't been charged? You're just going to forget the fact that, hey, that's still your child? I don't think so. You know, that's a big problem. And Terry, there is a lawsuit. There is a law about that. I'm going to get into that. You know, because degradation goes, it's just, I mean, there's no form around that. You know, when someone degrades you and to a point to where, all right, so you saying because I allegedly committed this crime or I haven't been charged of this crime that I deserve the right to be degraded, I deserve the right to be violated, I deserve the right to be abused. I mean, it has to trickle down, because not only just that prison system has an issue. It seems like most that all other prison systems have a issue when it comes to how the inmates and the youths are treated. I know at some point there is that, as Logic sat there and said, that Romeo and Juliet law when it comes to consent, but there should be a law when it comes to sentencing these youths. If you commit a crime at 14, does that give them the right to send them to a big, hardcore prison? Or do you send them to the juvenile detention center, and then once they become of age, you transfer them over to the prison? But these youths are actually going to prison and being put in isolation. And that was just her story. That was just her story. I cannot fathom, some of the abuse that a lot of them have went through and stuff. You got Lorenzo Steele, you got Marcus Villalobos. And Marcus Villalobos, I'm going to tell you about him. He was charged at the age of 16 and was sent to Rikers. And he got out of Rikers when he was 19. But the problem during that time that he was at Rikers, he spent over 300 days in solitary confinement. That's pretty harsh. He spent 300 days in solitary confinement before he was even charged with the crime that he allegedly did. That's crazy. You're absolutely right. That is crazy. You got innocent people in prison for a crime they didn't commit. You absolutely right. You do have innocent people in prison for a crime that they didn't commit. That's why a lot of those pardons came into play. But to me, it shouldn't take over half their lifetime to get those pardons. But what about the mental, physical, and psychological abuse that they endured when they were sentenced to prison as a youth, and then they got out as an adult or was pardoned as an adult? That abuse alone is something that neither you or I probably could ever sit and talk about or explain. That's probably abuse that they don't even want to talk about. That's abuse that they can never get over. But where is the counseling for these inmates, for these youths that's going to solitary confinement, that's going to prison, for these inmates? Where is the counseling? You pay taxes, and our tax dollars need to be explained to us what it is we're paying for, because it seems like no matter how much you pay, the system is just not doing right when it comes to what it needs to be done. We already know that when it comes to the justice system, the criminal system, that it works for some and it don't work for others. We already know the laws that have been written way back in the 1500s. The problem with that is those laws that was written way back in the 1500s, those laws were written to control the surplus population. Who's the surplus population? We are the surplus population. The minorities are the surplus population. The immigrants are the surplus population. The Muslims are the surplus population. Those laws was created and written to control us at the end of the day. And every time you hear the word a new law has been written or made or passed, those laws already been in effect. The only thing they did was took it and revamp it and brought it back out and call it new. Those laws been written way back in the 1500s. Who write those laws? The wealthy. The wealthy write those laws. It's proven. It's written in black and white. That's the problem. They control the system. They control the people that run the system, and they control the laws that's being written. Okay, so we're going to talk about Andy Hernandez. Andy Hernandez whispered through his solitary confinement that he was dying and begged for a doctor. On April 7, 2013, his artery that supplied blood to his body did not supply blood to his body. I'm sorry. And started making its way down to his groin. He cried out in pain before taking his last breath in solitary confinement as he asked, can he say goodbye to his mother? It was only then that they decided to send a doctor in to see about him. But the doctor didn't come to see about him. The doctor prescribed him some hand cream. And hours later, he was found dead on the floor in his solitary confinement cell. Something wrong with that picture. When did it become the norm to not treat an inmate with medical attention? When did it become a norm? It should not have been a norm to not give these inmates, these youths, the medical attention that they rightfully need. That's a problem. That's a real big issue when it comes to that. That kid didn't have to die. I'm sorry, but he didn't have to die had he received the proper medical treatment that he was supposed to get. He probably would still be alive today if he had received that treatment. Unfortunately, it is what it is. He's gone. But there is a lawsuit that's out when it comes to him. His parents said, you know what? No, my son was in y'all care and you did not provide him the proper care that he was supposed to get. And they did not provide him that proper care. That's the sad part about it. They did not provide him that proper care that he was supposed to get. So if they did not provide him the proper care that he was supposed to get, then it was only fair to say that he was going to pass away and die. It's just shocking for me to hear this. You're right, Kate Money, it really is. Unfortunately, the system is what it is. Unfortunately, it's very shocking at the end of the day. But then, what about Khalif Browder? What about him? I'm gonna play this, and I believe this video is. I'm not gonna play the video. I'm gonna just let y'all hear it. And he's going to talk about some things.
You miss everything about family, certain events. You want to be home.
Khalif Browder. It's one of the names in the roll call of black lives taken by the criminal justice system. He was arrested in New York City at age 16 because someone accused him of stealing a backpack. One witness, and he spent 3 years at Rikers waiting for a trial because he couldn't pay his bail and he refused to take a plea. Both inmates and guards abused Khalif at Rikers. He spent nearly 2 years in solitary.
And in solitary confinement, they control your food and when it's time for feeding. So if you say anything that could tick them off in any type of way, a lot of them, they won't feed you, and it's already hard in there because if you get the 3 trays that you get every day, you're still hungry. If they starve you 1 tray, that could really make an impact.
We don't now lack for evidence that this is horrific.
Dwayne Betts is the poet and lawyer who's been with me throughout this podcast. He says solitary confinement is so dangerous for young people like Khalif that the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatrists recommends any kid held for more than 24 hours should get immediate evaluation.
It's so bad that the UN expert on torture has called for absolute prohibition of solitary confinement. I mean, the practice is just basically considered around the world inhumane, cruel, and degrading.
Khalif Browder tried to kill himself several times while in solitary. Guards responded by beating him. He did finally get out of Rikers. The prosecutor dropped the case because they lost touch with the single witness. But Khalif, he never left solitary behind.
Khalif Browder killed himself on Saturday. Browder spent 3 years in jail on New York City's Rikers Island, much of it in solitary confinement. All that time, he was awaiting trial, a trial that never took place.
I'm Kai Wright. This is Caught. The kid who really got us started reporting this series has landed at Rikers too. Z is the 17-year-old who we last heard from right after he'd been rearrested. We're going to return to his story later in this episode. But first, we're going to focus on this one extreme form of punishing kids. In recent years, reform advocates have made a lot of progress in curtailing the use of solitary. President Obama banned it for juveniles in federal prisons. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio banned it for anyone under 21 years old at Rikers. And following a lawsuit, New York State banned extreme forms of solitary for juveniles in prisons. But as with anything, there's often a gap between the rules at the top and the reality inside the system. So we wanted to find out what kids like Khalif Browder face around New York State now when they're being held for trial. We partnered with the Marshall Project to investigate that, and WNYC producer Courtney Stein was part of the team. So Courtney, how's it look? Is the ban New York State put in place working?
You know, that ban only keeps teenagers in New York State prisons out of 23-hour solitary confinement. There's a loophole for kids that are in county jails. If a kid like Khalif Browder is being held in a county jail besides Rikers, they can be put in solitary. And being in jail means, for the most part, they haven't yet had a trial, they haven't pled guilty or been convicted of a crime, and it means they're probably being locked up with adults. So I took a trip upstate to check out one of these jails, in Onondaga County. This place has been rated amongst the worst jails in New York. I came here to meet a young woman we're going to call Imani. I was led back through a series of locking gates to a small classroom. A few minutes later, a corrections officer brought her in. They had her in an adult-sized jumpsuit, but she looks like she could be in middle school. So this is the recorder's microphone.
Okay.
I'm going to have it kind of close so I can get good sound, so it's going to be almost like this.
Okay.
Okay, we'll let you guys do your thing.
The two corrections officers left the room. I'm very surprised that we're sitting alone with you.
For real.
But a wall of windows faced the hallway, so they were there watching us as we talked. Can you tell me what it's like growing up here?
For real?
Yeah.
This your first time?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Where I grew up at, it just was not good.
Imani's the baby in her family, the youngest of 3 kids. She talks to her grandma on the phone every day. And until she got locked up, she helped take care of her nieces and nephews. What happened the day that you first got arrested?
The day I first got arrested.
You woke up at home.
I woke up. I got in the shower. I got dressed. My hair was already done, so I didn't have to do it. Then, me and my friends, we went to the store. It was a man in the store. He had long hair. He seen us, and he kept looking, so I'm just looking too.
Getting watched when she's shopping isn't new to her. Imani's had to get used to it growing up in upstate New York. She's young and black in a place where African Americans make up only 12% of the population. But 72% of the juveniles held in the county jail are black. So when Imani and her friends were in the dollar store and the long-haired guy was following them around, she says,
he grabbed my friend, so I pushed him. So then we ended up leaving out the store. He followed us. We was finna run, but I said we don't have to run because we didn't do nothing. So the police car stopped. The one officer got out. So he like, did y'all just leave the store? So I'm like, yeah, because I didn't think we was over arrested because we didn't do nothing. So I'm like, yeah, I told him, yeah. They just told me to put my hands in my bag and cuffed me.
Unlike a lot of teenagers, when Imani was accused of shoplifting, The store didn't call her parents to come get her. Instead, she was arrested by 5 police officers and brought to the county jail. It's called the Justice Center. She was 16 when she was arrested, and in New York, that means she's considered an adult. And that's why she got locked up in an adult jail. Her bail was set at $500, but she wasn't able to pay it.
I never actually thought about being arrested going to the Justice Center. My first impression was, what did I get myself into?
Amani knows about this place. She told me her stepsister Chunice died at the Justice Center in 2009. She was 21 years old and pregnant and having painful complications. Chunice cried in pain all night, but was ignored. She died in her cell.
The lady put me in a single cell. It was little. It was disgusting. It was dirty.
A few days later, one of the corrections officers said she was making too much noise with another inmate, so he locked her in her cell.
So I wrote a grievance on him, and when the sergeant came, I gave it to the sergeant. The sergeant asked me, do you want to play this game? Who you think gonna win, me or you?
She was moved to the isolation unit, or the box.
So I handed him the grievance. He told us pack our stuff. I ended up flooding my cell, and they put me in the box.
So what does it mean to be in the box there?
When I was in the box, I was in it for 45 days, somewhere around here. You walk in, the sink and the toilet is connected. The bed is on the floor, no TV, no phones, nothing. I had no contact with the outside world whatsoever. Couldn't make no phone calls, couldn't see nobody, couldn't contact nobody, couldn't talk, nothing. You in your cell. You just sit there and wait till the next day to come.
Amani was locked in her cell for 23 hours a day, and sometimes 24. Even though she was a high school student, she was denied education of any kind, and that 1 hour outside her cell was in a filthy, empty cage so she could have recreation by herself.
I'm always cold. The blanket is thin.
One of the reasons the Justice Center earned its spot among New York's worst jails is that when inmates file grievances, many are just ignored.
I don't know, it made me feel like nothing. Like an animal. You wake up, they give you your tray through your slot. That's it.
The jail offered no mental health services to kids in solitary. While she was there, Amani wrote a letter to her mom saying she didn't want to live anymore.
They come and put you in the shower if it's your day to shower. The shower is open. It's no nothing, just an open shower. And they see you, they be staring sometimes. Like one day I was in the shower, the man came and he said, you done? I said no. He said, well, hurry up. And he's standing there. Then I got out. He was staring at me. I put a towel over me. He still was looking at me. And I'm like, write agreements, nothing happened.
%95 of the kids who were there for 60 days were getting locked in to solitary confinement at some point. I mean, this is really striking.
Josh Cotter is an attorney for Legal Services of Central New York. He says that corrections officers called Amani horrible names all the time.
You know, call a 16-year-old girl a little bitch or a little slut when you're a grown man it's reprehensible. But that kind of attitude that they would have would really have an effect on the kids, because if the kids are getting disrespected, it makes it harder for them to give the respect back.
Cotter started investigating how juveniles were being treated at the Justice Center. A correctional expert found that the solitary confinement unit there was one of the worst he'd ever seen. So Cotter and the New York Civil Liberties Union sued. The lawsuit was settled last summer, and now the jail can no longer hold kids in 23-hour isolation. But for kids like Amani, the damage is already done. She was held there for 4 months.
When I got out, it was like, I don't know, I really couldn't sleep because it have an effect on you. When you be in the box for so long, then you get out, you still feel like an animal sometimes.
When I visited Amani, she was back in jail. Once again, she had been followed when she was shopping, this time at the mall. She got upset and walked out of the store, but she was still holding an item of clothing. Amani wanted to make a point, so she sat down on a bench outside the store and just waited. We wanted to know how many other kids are still being held in solitary. The lawsuit brought against the jail where Amani was held only covers that one county. And in New York State, there are 61 more. And each one of those counties has their own rules about how they treat teenagers in their jails. I asked the New York Civil Liberties Union how many of these jails are using solitary confinement with kids. And they told me that no one really knows for sure. That's because tracking the precise number of kids that are subjected to solitary isn't possible. And not just in New York, but nationwide. States don't publish that data. And it turns out in New York, they weren't even collecting it. Basically, there's this information black hole. So we decided to partner with an investigative reporter named Taylor Eldridge at the Marshall Project. We wanted to find out where kids are being subjected to this.
Yeah, so we called every county in the state, so that's 62 counties. We called sheriffs, jail administrators, wardens, public defenders, advocates, anyone we could find really who would know how teenagers are handled in the jail.
We heard back from 34 counties, and of those, 29 of them said that they use solitary for teenagers. That's most of the counties that responded, and almost half of the counties in New York State. Josh Cotter, the attorney that brought the case against the Justice Center, filed a class action suit in July against another upstate county jail over its use of solitary.
Yeah, so people are paying attention to this. There was a rule change that was proposed by the state commission that oversees county jails, but it really only changes the amount of paperwork that jails have to do.
Which means that now, local jails will have to document when they put kids in solitary. But it doesn't mean they can't do it. All a jail has to do is say that a kid is a threat to the good working order of the facility, and solitary is approved.
To read the full investigation, go to themarshallproject.org. I'm back with Dwayne, who actually has some very personal experience with solitary confinement. So, Dwayne, I know from reading your memoir that throughout your 9 years in prison, you went in and out of solitary regularly.
Yeah, but when you say that, it makes it seem like I was doing something. It's funny because if I tell somebody now, I was in solitary confinement at least 6 times. And each time was for some charge, but all of those charges were trumped up. None of those charges actually reflected me being a danger to the institutional community.
Like what? What's an example?
Well, once I was being told to move from one cell to another, and I didn't want to. And then the guard was like, look, if you don't move, you're going to the hole. And so I touched his arm to say, look, okay, I'll move. And I touched his arm, and he said that was assault. And he slammed me against the wall, put me in handcuffs, and basically dragged me down the steps and threw me in a hole, and I got 10 days in a hole for that. I literally just touched his arm, and I was 16 years old. I hadn't learned not to talk with my hands.
But ironically, it was while you were in the hole that you found something that would be a big part of your future, right?
Yeah, I mean, I discovered poetry in solitary confinement. I mean, you have to imagine a parallel row of cells with a first floor and a second floor and no library. And every man in these cells understands how horrific it is to be inside this cell. And the only thing that we could do for each other really was make sure that we shared what we had in terms of things to stimulate our minds. And so you could go to the door and just say, somebody send me a book. And a stranger would slide a book under your cell. It would come like a gift from the heavens or something. Mm. And one day I get Dudley Randall's The Black Poets. Didn't ask for it. Don't know who gave it to me. At the time, I had no real interest in poetry. I discovered Robert Hayden. I discovered Etheridge Knight. And, Etheridge Knight had did time in prison. And I started writing poetry. And I came home and became a poet. And I'm reading his biography while I'm in this solitary confinement cell. And I'm thinking that, this could be me. And so I just sort of made a decision. And so from that day forth, I told myself that I was a poet. I had one of those ink pens that was just long as your index finger, made of plastic. I would take that ink pen, and because I couldn't really afford writing tablets, right, I would write on the back of request forms. And I would rip them in half, and I imagined myself creating a kind of book. And over the course of 18 months, I literally wrote thousands of poems. They were the worst thing that's ever been written in the history of the English language. But I still have them to this day. I remember ripping a sheet and using a sheet to create thread to bind these pages together, imagining that I was creating a book that I had written and that I would, be able to share with people. And so for me, I think about it now, and when I tell the story, I think that it is so much wasted potential. But even more than wasted potential, like, we waste the ability to provide people with opportunities. And that's the thing that for me is sort of most tragic.
Okay. So y'all heard that, right? And that was just from two of them. The treatment was, and this is from people who was inside that prison, the treatment that was being done to them. You got Hernandez, who at the age of 16, June 2010, he killed the 17-year-old by the name of Muhammad Jahala, where he was charged with murder and gang assault, right? But the treatment that he received was unbearable while he was in prison. He was sent straight to solitary confinement. I'm not justifying the crimes that they do. Yeah, by all means, you commit the crime, you do the time. That's without a given. Anybody that commit the crime, do the time. Plain and simple. But at the end of the day, thank you, Beverly, beautiful. At the end of the day, they deserve to be treated with dignity, with as humane as possible. And that can't happen if the system and the people that's running the system is allowed to do what they want to do when they want to do it. Oh, and let me switch here. On Khalif Browder, he was held at Rikers Island for 3 years without trial, and he committed suicide. He committed suicide. Let me get my chat back. I don't know why it disappeared. He committed suicide. Khalif Browder was sent to Rikers when he was just 16 years old, accused of stealing a backpack. Though he never stood trial or was found guilty of any crime, he spent 3 years at the New York City jail complex, nearly two of those years in solitary confinement. How do you spend 2 of the 3 years in solitary confinement and he never went to trial to be found guilty of any of the crimes that they said he did? October 2014, he written in the New Yorker, his case became a symbol of what many saw as a broken criminal justice system. And we got to admit, the criminal justice system all around, it's not just New York, but the criminal justice system all around is broke, period. It is very broke. Mayor Bill de Blasio cited the article this spring when he announced an effort to clear the backlogs in state courts and reduce the inmate population at Rikers. For a while, it appeared Mr. Browder was putting his life back together. He earned a high school equivalency diploma and started community college, but he continued to struggle with life after Rikers. He continued to struggle, and I'm going to tell you why he continued to struggle. Because one, when you spend 2 years in solitary confinement and 3 years in prison, and you are not given a court appearance, you're not charged with that crime, and you're sitting in a 23 by inch cell with number walls, Nothing. That plays with the person's mental being. That plays with the person's emotions. That makes you depressed. That makes you have anxiety. That makes you want to commit suicide. You have suicidal thoughts. But he was not given any type of counseling. The system failed him all the way around, as they failed many of the youths, as they still fail him. Regardless of whether you're young or whether you're an adult, they're still failing because the system is broke. And when you have people that is corrupt working in these places, this is what you get. For a while, it appeared Mr. Browder was okay. On Saturday, he committed suicide at his parents' house. Jennifer Garnerman, the author of the article The New Yorker, said in an interview on Monday that it appeared he was never able to recover from the years he spent locked alone in his cell for 23 hours of the day. 23 hours of the day. One of those hours probably consisted of him going outside by himself to get some sun and going to take a shower and back in that cell. I don't know about y'all, but I can't be locked away for a long period of time and not go crazy. And then they want to say, okay, you're released, and then nothing is wrong with me. I'm going to be all kind of screwed and jacked up. I'm sorry. So if this baby was already screwed and jacked up for 3 years, and 2 of those years in solitary confinement, something wrong with that picture. Out of jail, Ms. Garnerman said he almost recreated the conditions of solitary confinement, shutting himself in his bedroom for long periods. He was very uncomfortable being around people, especially a large group. I mean, he was a baby. He was sent to prison. Mr. de Blasio's administration in December did away with solitary confinement like I said, for 16 to 17 years, citing the damaging effects that prolonged isolation can have on their mental stability. Like I said, anybody, a youth, a child, going to prison, and they in solitary confinement for as long as he was, yes, I wouldn't expect him to be correct. You say you learned to adapt. I did 17 months right away in prison in New Jersey. How old was you, King One, when you went to prison? In a statement released on Monday, the mayor said that Khalif's story helped inspire our efforts at Rikers. There is no reason he should have gone through this ordeal, he added, and his tragic death is a reminder that we must continue to work each day to provide the mental health services so many New Yorkers need. But let's go down here. In jail, he tried to commit suicide several times. He told Ms. Garner that he was repeatedly beaten by correctional officers and fellow inmates. But she said she did not realize the extent of the abuse until she watched security videos showing him being knocked to the ground by an officer and attacked by inmates. You was 25 years old and 17 months in lockup. Wow. Throughout, he insisted on his innocence, refusing several offers from prosecutors to take a plea deal, including one that would have allowed him to be released immediately. I mean, once you take a plea deal and you know you didn't commit that crime is going to be on your record. Do you know how hard it takes to clear your record, to get it expunged? That takes a very long time. Not only a very long time, you got to wait that X amount of time frame before you can even try to get it expunged, before you can even get it off your record. So I don't blame those that's going and refusing to take those plea deals, especially if you know you didn't do it. Unfortunately, prosecutors dropped the charges. In the course of the 3 years Mr. Browder was being held, they lost contact with their only witness. How do you lose contact with your only witness if the witness wasn't lying in the first place? You got many people who are sitting behind prison because of an eyewitness. You got people who have lost their lives because of an eyewitness. Although the two don't compare to each other, but we could go back to Emmett Till. Emmett Till did not have to die because of an eyewitness accused him of something. He did not have to die. An eyewitness. But these prosecutors lost contact with their eyewitness. Are you serious? How do you lose contact? At the end of the article, Mr. Browder, who was the youngest of 7 children and nicknamed Peanut by his family, described being unable to rid himself of the fears that had consumed him in jail. He said he was afraid of being attacked in the subway, and before going to sleep at night, he checked to make sure every window in the house was locked. There were some good moments in the 2 years after he was released. An anonymous donor offered to pay his community college tuition. His story attracted the attention of celebrities like Jay-Z, go figure, Rosie O'Donnell, bad person, who invited him onto The View and gave him a MacBook Air laptop computer. So you mean to tell me he gets a Mac Airbook laptop for 3 years? He was in prison, 2 of those in solitary confinement, where he went through the most harshest treatment ever. And he get the charges dropped because the witness was lost, and he get a Mac Airbook. Wow. There were some good moments in the 2 years. Okay. Senator Rand Paul, Republican of Kentucky, talked about him in campaign speeches. Mr. Browder mental health deteriorated. He became paranoid and last Christmas was hospitalized on a psychiatric ward at Harlem Hospital Center. On Saturday, Mr. Browder pushed an air conditioning unit out of a second floor window at his parents' home, wrapped a cord around his neck, and according to Ms. Garnerman, pushed himself out of the opening feet first. His mother heard a noise, according to Ms. Garner, and went out to the backyard and saw her youngest child had hung himself. He was 22 years old. He was 22 years old. And this is the violence that takes place. There is no sound in this video. And again, I have my copyright disclaimer up. Pay attention. This is atrocious. You're right, honey. Like, that's only what we know. Ain't no telling how much more is going on. This is just only a little bit. So apparently he's radioing somebody, another guard. Now correct me if I'm wrong. Did that inmate do anything to him other than he was talking to him? Now here come Mr. Saber to help us, and here she come. You're right, that's only what we know. And quite sure there is a lot more. Yeah, it is. It's plenty. You'd be surprised at how many videos are out there of abuse that is going on inside the prison system. Yeah, he do, Augustus. He need to be fired and put in prison. But a lot of them is starting to be charged with some of the treatment that they've been doing and how they've been treating others. Yeah, a lot of them is starting to be charged with that. Hmm. That's sad. Yeah, they do need to be inmates. He was Honey Lot. Yeah. Now, I see a whole lot of things wrong with this picture here. Because it's like the guards was making you seem like they was doing their job, but they really wasn't doing their job. Oh, so now the cavalry wants to arrive. After everything is done, the cavalry wants to arrive. Really? And that young man was Kalief Browder. That was him. That was sad. And he was a sophomore at the time that he allegedly stole this backpack. That this eyewitness seen him steal this backpack. That is very sad. The two laws that came into effect to stop solitary confinement of youth was Statute 3649, and this bill amends various provisions of law and sets forth new provisions to require the Department of Justice to establish and the Bureau of Prisons to implement a risk and needs assessment system to modify the computation of good time credit to allow federal correctional officers to securely store and carry concealed weapons in the prisons premises outside the security prisons, to limit the use of restraints on federal prisoners who are pregnant or in postpartum recovery, to reduce mandatory So if you are pregnant or in postpartum recovery, why would you want to maximally restrain a female prisoner? That's the only common sense, that when you're pregnant, you're not supposed to have your hands behind your back and all that stuff. Why do you have to make a law to tell the people to do the right thing? That makes no sense to me. To broaden the existence safety valve to permit a sentence below the mandatory minimum for certain non-violent cooperative drug offenders with a limited criminal history. To make the Fair Sentencing Act of 2010 retroactive. Well, why they got the retro act that when it should have already been retroacted? So you mean to tell me I'm gonna get sentenced, but I know my sentence is gonna be harsh and unfair? Why does it take for that baby to have died for them to start implementing these laws? To require prisoners to be placed within 500 miles of their primary residence, to require low-risk prisoners to be placed on home confinement. That's for them to be put on probation. You know, they go see their probation officer and all that stuff. To reauthorize through fiscal year 2022. I'm not going to even read the rest of this stuff because it doesn't make sense. And modify eligibility for an elderly offender early release pilot program. And you know why they want that elderly early release pilot program? Because they don't want them dying in their system. That means the state is responsible for that death, for the cost of it. So why not send early release them, get them out the system, get another youth in, so that they can get the money coming and send them home. Then you had the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Act, which established in 1974 and most recently authorized in 2018. Get this, it was established in 1974 and most recently authorized in 2018 with bipartisan support. And it is based on a broad consensus that children, youth, and families involved with the juvenile criminal court should be guarded by federal standards for care and custody while also upholding the interests of community. That's ludicrous. The Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Act provides for a national juvenile justice planning and advisory system spanning all states, territories, and the District of Columbia. Federal funding for delinquency prevention and improvements in states and local juvenile justice programs. This should have already been should have already been in effect. Shouldn't took from 1974 to 2018 to go ahead and put it in effect. I'm sorry, it shouldn't have never took that. At the end of the day, yeah, they are. When it comes to the system, period, it's always going to be some type of cover up. It is always going to be some type of cover up. But let's look at the 10 worst prison systems in the U.S. Rikers Island is number 10, which is at the bottom because 1 is the worst. All right, Municipal Love, thank you for coming. The maximum inmates that Rikers Island Prison can hold is 10,000. The capacity is 15,000. The capacity they can hold is 15,000. Right now they are at 10,000. You got number 9 Walnut Grove Youth Correctional Facility, which is in Mississippi. You got Reeves County Detention Complex, Pecos, which is in Texas. Number of prisoners, 3,750. Number 7, Julia Titweiler Prison, which is in Alabama. And they only have 400 inmates. That's the maximum. That's it. That's all. This maximum lock security lockup near Montgomery includes women's death row. So this is for decades. It also included a special segregation unit for the quarantine of female prisoners with HIV. Wow. Wow. Pelican Bay State Prison in Crescent City, California. They got 3,500 prisoners. Of the 3,500 prisoners, 1,500 of them are in solitary confinement. But California leads the nation both in its overall prison population in the number of prisoners in solitary confinement. About 11,000 men and women on any given day. At the Pelican Bay, the first state and most notorious supermax. Really? So as we go down, the worse the prisons get. So Rikers is not the worst. No, I don't want to subscribe to you. Men's Central Jail and Twin Towers Correctional Facility in Los Angeles, 9,500 combined. So they have both men and women all in this prison. Am I reading that correct? To be an inmate in the Los Angeles jail is to fear attacks by a savage gang of deputies, explains an extensive 2011 report from the American Civil Liberties Unit, which processes about 4,500 complaints a year. 4,500 complaints a year, that's a lot of complaints to be processed in a year. When, if they're doing the right thing, they ain't got to worry about processing it. New Orleans Parish Prison, 3,400. This New Orleans Barbaric City Jail first hit the national radar after Hurricane Katrina, when thousands of inmates were abandoned for days in flooded cells without food, water, ventilation, or electricity. Some of them were standing in sewage-tainted water up to their chests. Problem: neither both with Katrina nor ended in the storm's wake, when prisoners were taken back to the surviving buildings. Wow. Then you got Tent City, which is number 3. The number 3 on the list, Tent City, which is in Phoenix, Arizona. No jail is more closely associated with its jailer than Tent City, the 20-year-old brainchild of Maricopa County's infamous tough guy Sheriff Joe Arpaio. Y'all remember him? He was the one that was sentenced, and then he was the one that received the pardon from Trump. In 1993, to save the county the cost of building a new jail, Arpaio set up hundreds of Army surplus tents from the Korean War and used them to house prisoners. Really? Allen B. Polutsky Unit, aka Death Row, Livingston, Texas. That's number 2. The most lethal death row anywhere in the democratic world, is also probably the hardest place to do time in Texas. And the number 1 is U.S. Penitentiary Administrative Maximum, Florence, Colorado. Now, this prison is considered number 1 because of the type of criminals they are housing there. This is where they house the terrorists. This is where they house the terrorists. They also house the let me read it. They named this prison the Alcatraz. This is the Alcatraz. From the Alcatraz that everybody know, this is the Alcatraz of the Rockies. This is among the most secure prison in the world, though. Prisoners have been killed by guards, and guards have been killed by prisoners at this facility. The Unabomber Ted Kaczynski is housed there. Shoe bomber Richard Reed of Oklahoma City conspirator is housed there. Terry Nichols are all notable personages to be, but none of them have been shown to present any physical security risk. Although this is the number 1, this is where they are housed at. Muslims serving time for low-level terrorism offense, such as Saeed Fahad Hashami, convicted of helping to supply Al-Qaeda with socks and rain pouches. And there you have it. You got all 10 of the prisons on the prison system. I was going to open up my call-in line, but I think I'm going to do that on another one because I didn't want to go over the time of, I really didn't want to go over the time. And at the end of the day, we got to be more cognizant of, restore my chat. We got to be more cognizant of how these people are actually being treated. Because you cannot treat them in such a manner that there's not going to be a repercussion behind it at the end of the day. There is always going to be a repercussion behind any and everything that's done. Whether it's you're treating prisoners the wrong way or you're putting youths in isolations, the correction officers are not receiving the type of proper training that they're supposed to. The inmates are putting in complaints, and the complaints are being dismissed and called frivolous. You have to, it has to be some type of awareness brought. The awareness cannot be stopped at the end of the day. The awareness cannot be stopped due to the fact that you're going to continue to lose more people. You're going to continue to lose more youth. And it's just going to be a whole big mess. I'm going to leave off with this note. With everything that has taken place in Rikers Island in New York City when it came to the plaintiffs being the inmates, when it come to that city had to pay out more than $4 million to $470 million to the victims. That's a lot of money. And that money right there could be used to improve the city. But once the justice system learn to fix itself, they're going to continue to pay out. This is Miss Classy. I'm going to go ahead and leave y'all with, thank y'all first and foremost for coming. Yes, Beverly, abusing the badge. Never problem, honey lot. Just showing support and love. But at the end of the day, it is what it is, you know. I mean, we got a messed up facility. We got a messed up criminal justice system. We got messed up people working within the system. You got people who really not fit to even work and be there, you know. But you got kids who's being put in solitary confinement. Something needs to be done about that at the end of the day. I'm going to leave y'all with this. And we're going to come with a song by Snacks that I like this song. I really love this song. And the music that I'm playing is by Snacks Straight Drop Elite. Please check his music out. Also, the Walkaholic Challenge is still going on. It ends on the 14th of March. We have Honey Lot in the building who does the healthy eating. Please email her. You got KPR who does the she's doing a challenge right now, which is you have to draw a rose and email it into her to be put into the challenge, and she's doing a giveaway with that. Okay. Her channel name is That Girl Can Draw. She should have her email on there. So if you can draw, unlike Miss Classy who can't draw, but I am getting in on the challenge, which I want to show KPR this. Let me go back to my screen. I'm glad I said that. Because KPR, look what I got. I got my coloring pencils. Yes, I got my coloring pencils. So your girl will be getting in on that. And we will go from there. Okay. I'm going to leave y'all with Snacks. Thank y'all for coming. And y'all have a blessed day.
I might pull up, nightlife thriller. My shit rock like Jigga. Used to worry about your woman, like that killer. You can take it right back with ya. Shorty, I'ma get right back with ya. I gotta hit the block, gotta count that Skrilla. I need all the finer things, baby need some diamond rings. Haters trying to learn the lingo, I'm just focused on the cream. You see my phone been off the chain, you should soften up the pain. I'm bipolar in the strange, smooth swings every day. Hey, how you feel when it rain? Wait, I'm very special, you a plain Jane. I've been smoking hella KK, 20 pounds, bitches payday. Rose gold, Cuban link change. Ain't no way we on the same page. I'm just looking for a blank check, and I'ma blow it like a 12 gauge. Hey, I've been on that wave since my dog Rose. Now I know we great. This straight drop a lead, roll with me. I know your whole team is glowing. Love when it's snowing. Pull up with my gang. We exchange digits all on me. Women hotter than a cell cage. Fifth all the way from LA. I'm the boss, call me Hefe. Don Juan Presidente. Wax on like the sensei. Long arm like the Cambe. Your bitch on live like an MA. Keep it 100, Ben Frank. Number one stunner, get it straight. I'm getting closer, do you feel the faith? My niggas keep it real as day. Soon enough, we gon' fill the bank. A nigga try me, he gon' feel the flame. I'm here to say these rappers really lame. Off with your head, no guillotine. She not my lover, Billie Jean. Count up the cream, cream, cream. This the American dream team. Haters too scary to see me. I promise to bury you, be seen. I gave the yayo to Chi-Chi. I'm the Messiah, so king me. I gotta play out in DC, and the payout is sweeter than Kiwi. Bitty, bitty, bitchy. Hey, I've been on that wave since my dog Rose. Now I know we great. This straight drop a lead, roll with me. I know your whole team is glowing. Love when it's snowing.